Welcome to CrossTalk, 5th Plymouth District, as you know. CrossTalk has been a staple on this airwaves, WHCA, for nearly 20 years. And we have done cross-branding. As you know, we do CrossTalk 6th Plymouth District. We do CrossTalk 7th Plymouth District. And we also do a CrossTalk State Senate version, but we also, whether you know it or not, are fortunate enough to have a state rep who also wants to do one for the 5th Plymouth District, seeing that a thumbnail of his district is in the Whitman and Hanson area. We have State Representative David DeCoste, who is joining us. How are you, sir?
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
Well, again, this is something for us to do on a regular basis. Sure. When you are free and available. You're a busy individual. Folks who may not know what the 5th Plymouth District is, then you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. It consists of the town of Hanover, Rockland, Precinct 1 in the town of Hanson, right, and then Precincts 1 and 2 in the town of Norwell.
Yep, that's basically where we are now. And if anyone needs a geographical in the Hanson area, we're up essentially around Myette's and the Hitching Post. It's the part in the northwest towards Rockland.
Okay, good to know. Well, let's start off the latest. Right now, it's informal sessions up at the State House.
Although we may have a formal one, and our leadership warns us quite often that there might be some things coming in. So who knows what's going on there?
The rumor is, I know that there's been an economic package that has been worked on, discussed during this legislative session. Would that be one of the prime reasons, or is this something else that's in the works?
It could be. I mean, that's the great. The Massachusetts legislature is not known for its transparency. Hanson, I know we're going to get to the ballot question 1, and former representative, former senator, and now Auditor DeZoglio has always pushed for transparency, and I think it's a good idea, but right now we do not know what is working. We just know it's working, and I can tell you that a lot of us on both sides of the aisle really wish we had a little more transparent idea of what's going on. But the economic development bill is one of them, and who knows what else might pop up.
What has worked this legislative session? What are some of the things that you've been able to accomplish that has you motivated going into January 2025?
All right. Well, locally, there are a number of good things happening, and I always let's start off with one of the things that a legislator can really impact, and that has to do with the schools sometimes, particularly when you have specific funding. Chapter 90 and Chapter 70. Chapter 90 is roads. Mm-hmm. Chapter 70 is basically all other general government, and that's what typically figures into the school budget, among other things. It's a formula. Some of us would say it's a formula. It's unfair to the suburbs. We could talk about that. That's probably a long show in and of itself. But one of the things we're doing, stop beating around the bush directly, would be to rebuild the VOTEC. And that's going to come right after the election. Somewhere, depending on where we're going to have an election, it's going to be, as I understand it now, all of the school towns that are
9
involved.
Communities.
Right, 9 communities. And technically, as I understand it now, you could have 8 communities vote against it and 1 community vote for it in a big way. And if it carries, everybody's on the hook to pay. I am 100% in favor of this. I think I'll tell you, one of the shining lights in our area is what the VOTEC is doing. A lot of enthusiasm. I know you've been over there a number of times. Just terrific program, and to answer your question, that is one of the things we've been pushing, both in the public and private sector. I think you're going to see, once things are ironed out, a lot of local support in terms of grants, and sometimes sizable grants. People are lining up to provide, as an example, equipment for their agricultural programs, their horticultural programs. You might find a restaurant chain and without no outfitting their new kitchens and so forth and so on. Brass Lantern, which by the way they're terrific. Well, they've also got a food truck that they bring down to the Rotary, and I'll tell you what, just great kids. And you're already seeing an integration of the local community and the businesses there because there's such a shortage of blue collar. The unions are going to help. I think you might hear one or two unions significantly outfit a program in that school. So, and that's what we've been doing at the state level, and working with Dr. Hickey, of course, the superintendent, and the board there. So this is starting off with one of the positives. Great deal of support for that, and I think certainly over the course of the next term, you're going to see some movement for that. And just to touch a little bit, because what we can do, we've also been moving along early college, and for your listeners who aren't familiar with it, early college will involve more and more. At least in a perfect world, the ability of the kids to take school during nights, school during weekends, particularly at community colleges, which will not only apply towards graduation from high school, but towards matriculation to college. So in other words, you could have students in juniors or seniors taking college courses through. Right now, Quincy College does quite a bit, Massasoit, and there's nothing to prevent, and I think you will see in the future, private BU, I used to teach there, a number of colleges getting involved. They'll go there, they'll take courses, and then when they graduate, they can either graduate, a semester or two early from high school, conceivably, and come back that year directly into their senior year, either directly into college, come back that June, graduate with their peers, but in fact move into that. So who did something like that, by the way, is Mark Cuban, the billionaire. He actually got out of school as a junior, went to college, and started. So you're going to see a lot of it. It saves money for families because you would be able to, take that community college and apply it directly to the university system anywhere, or to private colleges if they'll take the credits. And so that is moving along rapidly. And I think you and I will live to see, I hope, a system where that VOTEC specifically is going to be offering, conceivably, say, a plumbing program where somebody from Hanson, Whitman Hanson, or Norwell, or Hanover, Rockland, could nights or weekends be taking that for credit towards graduation high school. So they'll get a plumbing program nights or weekends, go to their high school during the day, and come out with credit and graduate early, because they'll have that credit toward graduation, and then go off to work or school or the military or all three. And this is one of the things that we get excited. We're really doing positive work on that. By the way, it's also something that unites, I think, in our district, both parties, and ideologically right across the board. Everybody wants to see this. I get enthusiastic about it because there's one thing you can do as a legislator, and we are doing it.
Let's talk about affordability. It's probably one of the things that you're hearing more and more these days. What can be done in this state in regards to affordability? What can the state do to make things a little bit more affordable for the constituents?
Housing. You mean housing, or just in general?
Well, let's say housing, because I think housing costs are through the roof. To buy a home, any of the kids that are graduating have to hope and pray that there's some kind of the real estate bubble will burst and prices will come down in order to buy their own home.
Well, I think you're going to see a little bit more flexibility with the accessory dwelling unit. Because that's something you can take a look at.
The ADUs.
The accessory dwelling unit policy that's been changed that essentially allows by right ADUs in portions of town. I think you'll see that embraced more. And again, for those who aren't familiar with it, the simple description is that it allows homeowners to go in and within the footprint of their home, or possibly, with a small addition, you're going to be able to put a small unit in, and it can accommodate a family member with developmental disabilities or an illness, or an older family member moving in, or the reverse, a young, parents allowing their children to come in and have their own unit within the existing family home. I think you're going to see a lot of it, and I favor that mostly. What you don't want to see is entire neighborhoods being bought up by a larger and being basically turned into multifamily dwellings, because people don't, I believe, people don't move to where we are for that. So I think you're soon going to see some development. Hopefully you won't have a BlackRock type entity go in and take advantage of and destroy neighborhoods.
Let's talk a little bit while we're talking housing. The thing that we're seeing more and more communities rejecting is the MBTA Communities Act. I know Hanson is one of those communities that has turned it aside. You've got Marshfield, you've got Milton, I think, led the charge.
Well, 3 out of 4 of mine, Norwell, Hanover, and Hanson will be reviewing it. I just know recently North Reading, which is very similar to our communities down here, they rejected it out of hand, and they took a look at it and said no. There are communities that are actually contributing to Milton. What MBTA communities will do basically is change the character of every single town. They are trying to urbanize essentially, and when I say they, there are interests, a lot of social engineers in bureaucrats in the state and state-supported entities who are looking to significantly alter the character of many of these towns. And having sat on the housing committee now for 10 years, I can tell you many of them just are doing it for ideological basis because they don't like the suburbs. And they don't like the people who live in the suburbs, and they want to see a demographic change, and they want to see a change in the character of the town. And I think I know that it's fairly transparent, and a lot of people are seeing this and speaking out against it. There's a reason people move to Rockland. There's a reason people move to Hanover and Norwell, and Hanson. And they want their communities the way, and they certainly, and I agree with this, I think, without getting too personal, I haven't met anyone in the Beacon Hill positions of authority who I would ask for influence in any aspect of my life. And a lot of them, I wouldn't ask them what color tie to wear. And I think when they come, it's pretty apparent that it's this is all ideological, and they really offer no benefit. You're talking in Norwell, for instance, another 750 units of housing, which, by the way, this is in addition to 40B, Chapter 40B. Right. So no consideration as to where the wells are going to be, whether or not we have sewerage. Rockland, for instance, very tight. Rockland, Abington share waterworks, very tight water situation in all the communities. Rockland, very tight sewage situation. So it's limits development, and the other towns that are on septic, it really is even worse.
It seems as though this is going to be an issue that will bear watching, because, again, not only are you talking about that communities are trying to keep up with 40B and that the federal initiative of at least having 10% of your housing stock be affordable housing, but then you're also creating additional. And then you mentioned Abington and Rockland. I know as far as with them to have the shared water resources that they're dealing with a lot of communities are dealing with, is the PFAS situation, where they're trying to spend millions of dollars to filter their water.
Yeah, we could
really drill down on it.
We could spend a lot. As a matter of fact, the money, without getting too far afield, the money that we're spending on immigration right now and accommodating our new asylum seekers or settlers or whatever you want to call them, could be much better spent in my estimation in infrastructure, and especially on water and sewer infrastructure, which across the state is degrading.
Well, that's an interesting segue. What are you hearing from people in regards to the migrant situation, as to folks coming here, the right to shelter has been brought up and discussed as far as amending that legislation, that amendment. What are you hearing from folks in your district?
Why, I think if it were put to a vote, the policy would be voted down pretty substantially. I guess a couple of things come to mind. I was just walked through the Comfort Inn in Rockland, which is extraordinarily, for the period they have it rented, $12 million to accommodate about 60 figures, and I had the numbers, but the bottom line is you've got some adults, you've got that supposedly 10% of them or so are U.S. families, and the rest come from, as I understand it, in our case, primarily Haiti. There are areas other, up by the Concord Rotary, there's a old, I believe, Holiday Inn, and they've got about half Ukrainians and half, so it's mixed throughout the state, but it's primarily from the Caribbean, and they're primarily Haitian. So to accommodate them right now, we were taken through, and they have, for instance, 24/7 security that the state is paying for. Where they have a full-time 40-hour-a-week person for housing. So we literally, you mentioned the housing credit, we are literally underwriting, putting non-citizens into housing at state expense. We are underwriting local, they're going on to Mass Health. By the way, they have a registered nurse on duty, apparently 7 days a week. All right, 40-hour a week for resettlement, 40-hour a week person for jobs. We've got 3 more people, in other words, there, plus security. Okay, that's 24/7. In addition to the $64 a day per person for catering. Doesn't matter if they're this big or an adult. $64 a day per person for catering at those facilities. And again, $12 million. And the interesting cost figure, we talk about cost because additionally, these are all things that can be spent. We are underwriting an enormous amount into Mass Health. We don't know how much because they're not keeping track of it near as I can make. The Republican caucus has put in FOIAs, but again, if you don't do the accounting at the state level, really it's a mystery.
So is there an end game in regards to the migrant situation?
That's a good question.
And the spending of money?
That's an excellent question. They fill the rooms as soon as they place. And again, you mentioned housing. And we now have, at the state expense, the new settlers coming in at state expense are competing with our citizens. So the children that graduating and kids hoping that the housing bubble will go down, and now have to work against folks who are have the financing of the state to put them in housing. I don't know where it ends, to be honest with you. I will say that this may all be preempted depending on what happens this November.
November 5th.
Who is sworn in January.
Something else for us to continue talking conversation in different issues is, I believe that there's something that's going to be going into effect that will have serious consequences when it comes to folks who might want to purchase a vehicle that has a diesel engine that has to be fueled with diesel. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the state long ago has implemented policy and law to basically follow the edicts of California. So we're actually tied to some decisions of California bureaucrats, and we are now going to have to limit ourselves to diesels. That it's a 1-for-1 diesel in terms of electric vehicle sales. And there will be ways to get around that, whether people end up buying diesels in bordering states and bringing them in. Who knows? But this is going to be nobody wants electric vehicles now. Their sales are going down. Try to sell one used. Talk to the people in the Ford lots who are trying to get rid of their Lightnings and see how many they're selling there. A Ford pickup truck, it's electric. Nobody is buying these for the most part. And
why? What's the concern? Why do people not?
They're lousy trucks. Would you want to be sitting in an electric vehicle in a snowstorm or plowing in an electric truck with a snowstorm? The grid can't handle it. You talk to the local business, business leaders, and nobody's buying an electric truck to deliver anything. It's entirely impractical, and certainly nobody in the construction or you won't see people delivering gas or oil. You won't see UPS or FedEx doing electric, and we had some recent communities do try to do electric buses, and they've been a disaster. Great for the people in the industry; they're making a lot of money. Impractical for everyone else. But the bottom line is, we'll see. My guess is you will see a ballot question like that to roll back the policy permanently. As a matter of fact, I may have a hand in it sometime soon. I do sit on the Transportation Committee, but the impracticality of this rule is just incredible. And by the way, it's going to give local businesses, to the extent they can do it, one more excuse to move over the border to New Hampshire, Rhode Island, or Connecticut. It is not good, and it's unworkable.
You mentioned about a ballot question, and not that I want to go into ballot questions just yet as we're having our conversation. The governor signed a preamble to some gun legislation that was voted in to immediately enact this gun legislation. Give me your thoughts on it, because I know that there are people out there who have actually gathered signatures to have this be a ballot question in regards to the new gun legislation that was just signed into law.
Well, you asked me what I can do locally, and this is a perfect segue into kind of wickering all of this in together. Among the impacts of this law is one of the effects is that they basically make local campus police officers second-class citizens in terms of what they weren't included. Incredibly poorly written law in so many aspects. But one of the clauses in that law was to limit the amount of rounds that campus police officers to carry. So you asked me what I can do locally. I have a number of police officers within the state. We are heavy in police officers in my district, in the Plymouth 5th, and a lot of campus police officers from schools. And I will be working with one of the union leaders from a big school in Boston, and we have it authored and ready to go when the legislature opens next year in terms of modifying that, and hopefully we can push through. But you would have thought, number one, when people authored that gun law, that somebody would have picked up on that. But we had so little time to really look at it and vote on it. And I'll be honest with you, I did not pick it up, but the way the law is written, it references entities that don't exist and lists that don't exist, tasks the state police with putting together inspection policies, procedures, training, and I can't speak for the state police. What I can tell you is, on the record and off the record, I have not met a single state police officer that, number one, wants to be in the business or thinks they can do an effective job. But the bottom line is, with that petition you mentioned, governor signs a preamble. That means everything goes into effect immediately. And so immediately now, campus police officers off duty are limited in terms of what they can do. They're really second-class citizens. And you would have thought, especially when having dealing with the MIT campus officer who was killed when
with Boston Marathon bombing.
With Boston, with the Tsarnaev, when those murderers, the Tsarnaev brothers, murdered him. You would have thought by now we would have addressed that and put them right on par with local police, and the local police are behind it 100%. You've got some very good-sized departments in Boston. Northeastern, Boston University, Suffolk, and so forth, MIT, BU, MIT, Tufts, all of them.
Bridgewater State University.
BSU, and that is one of the groups that in my town I have a number of Bridgewater State officers in our district. And just it puts them at a disadvantage. And again, extremely poorly written bill. Why she felt the need, I think they realized it was picking up. It will be on the ballot. Okay. So next time we'll be able to write it and roll it all back. And my hope is, and there might be some, that either at the federal or state level, much of this will be struck down. I've often felt that the whole licensing regimen that we do is questionable in terms of constitutionality because we charge for the license. What other constitutional right do you know of that we charge for? I think it's probably unconstitutional, and I hope it gets either at the state level or the federal level struck down, either largely or wholly. And maybe we will get a bonus, and they'll say, "Oh, by the way, not only are we striking this down, but your licensing procedures are unconstitutional as well."
We got a few minutes left here with our conversation. I know we want to touch upon ballot questions and also touch upon things in the news from in and around the district. Anything you want to touch upon? Let's talk question 5, which is interesting because a lot of us go out to eat. A lot of times you have folks who will ask us what we want, bring us food. And question 5 has to do with tipping, which would go from tipping to incrementally they would increase the minimum wage for, I think right now, minimum wage for tippers and servers, for servers is like $7 an hour.
It's up. Nobody leaves local establishment, though. If they have a slow day, they will make up the difference.
Correct.
So nobody leaves with $2 in tips for working a day. Right now, which I did not know that until the restaurant. Yeah, one very heartening development is that I think the restaurant industry, the local, the NFIB certainly, many chambers of commerce are getting involved and saying, look, this is, again, another bill foisted by Californians. I have not met anyone in the local restaurant industry, anyone familiar with it, who supports it. I think it can be very damaging. And the hopeful sign is I think the words are getting out that we've sat down at our local restaurants and they're telling people, some of them have flyers.
I had that happen last night.
Good, and that's a good sign that, look, this is going to hurt us, going to hurt them. In California, they lost about 20% of the restaurants, went out of business after they passed this. Yeah, another example where you don't need local, the experts, local business owners, affected by bureaucrats or social engineers. In a way, it is a lot like MBT communities or 40B, where you have folks who have in bureaucratic positions or government-subsidized non-governmental organizations who are having an impact on the productive classes, and it's detrimental to the folks who are actually getting things done.
Let's close out with anything you want to touch upon in your district, that news or anything you want to just kind of let folks know you're aware and that you're working on.
Yeah, we're working, and I continue to work just on a couple of things. We're certainly working on water issues, particularly water, sewage in Rockland. And my hope is at a federal level, I think there'll be some spending, and maybe we can redirect some of these billions that are going out of the country to in the country to fix local infrastructure. There's a laundry list. I know Congressman Keating is laundry list and right across the state, the district of things that need this. But we're going to do our best to get PFAS addressed, water addressed. We've got a Route 139 study committee in Hanover that's doing a great job.
Overdue.
And people in Hanover make, there's the fix. There are a number of possible fixes, and people really need to educate themselves in terms of. It's not my role as a state rep or Senator Keenan. We basically sit in and let the local folks with the MassDOT make a decision that we support. But there are some solutions that people may find better or worse in Hanover, and I would encourage everyone to take a close look at what possibly could go there. And then Norwell and the regions along the North River, we continue to work with the North and South River Watershed Association to protect the river. My hope is we'll still be able to make difficult and maybe still kill the River Marsh project. That, my opinion, is just horrible. 40B down and affects all of the North River. Norwell, Hanover, it's being built in Pembroke. A really, really bad idea. So we're going to do that. And that's another example of, I think, where you find everyone on the same page, that the North River is just great. We work with the North River Commission, which is a little different from North-South River Watershed Association, but with the commission, with the Watershed Association protecting the North River, because it could go the other way. And it's, and by the way, also feeds into the Rockland sewer. So it's all interconnected. All interconnected. So my hope is that in next couple of years, we see some federal money, some state money being redirected towards cleaning up what's there, making it better, and maintaining everything that's good.
Folks want to find out more about you, they want to reach out to you as a constituent?
Citizensfordecoste.com, or you can go right on the internet, go to the state legislature. I have a superb aide, and we catch up daily on things we're supposed to call by, and I make it a point. My business cards have my cell phone number, and if people people call me directly sometimes to voice. I've had a number of ballot questions come up, and we'll sit down and talk about them. And I have office hours first, second, and third Friday. Either I or my aide sit in, and Norwell, Hanover, and Rockland, and Rockland second Tuesday, Rockland Library, 6 to 7 p.m. So we try to post those on Facebook, and so. We're available.
Well, thank you. This has been a great conversation, and we look forward to having more with you in front of the cameras here.
Well, thank you to Whitman Public Television for putting everything in, local cable TV. So a good job to our
Ryan,
thank you. There you are.
And we want to thank you for tuning into a program like this, CrossTalk, 5th Plymouth District. Until our next conversation, have yourself a great day.